When I first decided to move into a nursing home, I thought I was making the best choice for my golden years. I had heard all the promises: round the clock care, companionship, and a worry free lifestyle. It sounded like the perfect way to spend my later years without burdening my children. But the reality was far from what I had imagined. At first, everything seemed fine. The staff was polite, the rooms were clean, and meals were served on time. But something felt off. It wasn't immediate, but over time, I started feeling like I was losing something precious: my sense of independence. You don't realize how much you cherish simple things until they're taken away. The ability to choose what to eat, when to sleep, or even where to sit outside became decisions I no longer had full control over. I used to take long morning walks, enjoying the fresh air at my own pace. Now, everything runs on a schedule: meals at a set time, activities planned out for us, even lights out at a specific hour. It feels like living in a well-structured system, but not necessarily one designed for personal happiness. It's like a paradox. This place is built for elderly care, yet it often feels like it strips away the essence of truly living. I once read something from Henry David Thoreau that stuck with me. The price of anything is the amount of life you exchange for it. And that's exactly what I felt. I had traded my personal freedom for what I thought would be security and ease. But was it really worth it? Another harsh reality hit me when I noticed how silent the hallways were, despite being surrounded by so many people. The laughter and warmth of a real home were replaced by quiet conversations, distant television sounds, and the occasional beeping of medical machines. I used to think loneliness was something that only happened when you were physically alone. But I learned that loneliness is more about feeling unseen, even when surrounded by people. I don't say this to discourage anyone. Every experience is different. But I wish someone had told me these things before I made my decision. Because once you step into a nursing home, going back is not always an option. I had always imagined that moving into a nursing home would mean being surrounded by people my age, sharing stories, playing games, and reliving the past with those who understood what it meant to have lived through decades of history. But what I never realized was that loneliness doesn't always come from being alone. It comes from feeling disconnected, even in a room full of people. At home, I had the freedom to call my family anytime, to have neighbors drop by unexpectedly, to sit in my favorite chair and watch the world go by from my porch. Here, life became a routine that often felt empty. People come and go, but the deep, meaningful connections, those are rare. Many of the residents here keep to themselves, either because they are tired, dealing with their own health struggles, or simply not interested in forming new bonds at this stage of life. And I get it. When you've spent 70, 80 years building a life, making friends, raising a family, starting over feels exhausting. And then there's the pain of watching people disappear. One day, you see your neighbor at breakfast. The next day, their chair is empty. No one talks about it. No one asks questions. Because deep down, we all know what happened. It's an unspoken reality of living in a place where age is not just a number, it's a countdown. One of the hardest things to accept was the shift in my relationship with my own family. Before moving here, I imagined my children and grandchildren visiting every weekend, just like they used to at my house. I thought they'd call regularly, check in, bring me homemade food or small gifts, just to remind me I was still part of their lives. But as time passed, the visits became less frequent. The calls became shorter. And slowly, I started feeling like I was being forgotten. Not because they didn't love me, but because life outside these walls moves fast, and people get caught up in their own responsibilities. I don't blame them. But that doesn't make it hurt any less. It reminds me of something Albert Einstein once said. The only thing you absolutely have to know is the location of the library. But I would change that quote for those of us in our later years. The only thing we have to know is where we belong. And the hardest part of living in a nursing home is realizing that you no longer belong to the world you once knew. There's a silence that creeps in during the late hours, when the lights are dim and you're left alone with your thoughts. You start replaying moments from your past, times when you were surrounded by laughter, when you held your child's tiny hands, when you danced with your spouse in the living room, when you ran barefoot in the grass as a child. And you wonder, how did I get here? When did those days turn into memories instead of moments? I never thought I'd miss the small things the most. The ability to cook a meal just the way I like it. The simple act of opening my own fridge and choosing what to eat. The sound of my favorite radio station playing softly in the background. A nursing home takes care of your body, but it doesn't always nourish your soul. If there's one thing I regret, it's not realizing sooner that happiness isn't just about having a safe place to live. It's about feeling alive. And in many ways, moving here made me feel like I was just waiting. Waiting for visits, waiting for something to change, waiting for time to pass. But life isn't meant to be waited out. It's meant to be lived. And sometimes, I wonder if I made the mistake of choosing comfort over the messy, unpredictable, but beautiful reality of living on my own terms. Before I moved into a nursing home, I took pride in my independence. I wasn't running marathons or climbing mountains, but I could wake up in my own bed, decide what I wanted for breakfast, go for a walk whenever I pleased, and sit on my porch to watch the world go by. I had control over the little things, and it turns out those little things were everything. When you enter a nursing home, that independence slowly slips away, sometimes so subtly that you don't even realize it, until one day you wake up and realize you don't even get to choose what time you eat. Your meals are scheduled, your medications are timed, your activities are planned, and suddenly, the life you spent decades shaping is now dictated by someone else's routine. At first, I told myself it wasn't a big deal. It's just structure, right? But there's a difference between having structure and having control over your own life. The first time a nurse told me, "It's time for dinner," and I wasn't even hungry, something inside me felt off. The first time I was told, "You can't leave the facility without signing out," I felt like a child asking for permission. And the first time I was told I wasn't allowed to do something as simple as change my own bed sheets because that's what the staff is for, I felt like I was losing myself. I thought back to a quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson. To be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment. But what happens when the world around you no longer lets you be yourself? What happens when every small decision you once made for yourself, what to eat, when to sleep, how to spend your time, is no longer yours to make? I used to love cooking. The smell of fresh garlic sizzling in a pan, the satisfaction of making my own coffee just the way I liked it, the warmth of homemade soup on a cold day. I didn't realize how much of my identity was tied to these simple acts until they were taken away. In a nursing home, meals are prepared for you, and while the food might be nutritious, it lacks the heart, the personal touch. There's no choice, no creativity, no connection to the process. And it's not just about food. It's about losing the ability to care for yourself in ways that made you feel human. One of the hardest moments for me was when a nurse insisted on helping me get dressed. I had been dressing myself for over 70 years, and suddenly, someone else was buttoning my shirt, tying my shoes, treating me like I was incapable. I know it was done out of kindness, but kindness can sometimes feel like a quiet theft, taking away your ability to do things simply because it's faster, easier, or more efficient for someone else. I wanted to push their hands away and say, "Let me do this. I can do this." But when you're in a nursing home, you start to doubt yourself. You start to believe that maybe they're right. Maybe you're too old to do these things anymore. Maybe it's easier to just let go. That's the danger of losing your independence. Not just the physical freedom, but the mental strength that comes with believing in yourself. There's a phrase I hear often from the staff: "Let us take care of that for you." And while it's meant to be helpful, it feels like a slow erasure of everything that made me, me. I never realized how much I'd missed the simple inconveniences of life, the ability to struggle with something and figure it out myself, to fix a leaky faucet, to rearrange my furniture, to drive to the store and decide what brand of cereal to buy. It's strange how the very things we once complained about, chores, responsibilities, even small everyday problems, are the things we long for when they're gone. I now understand why so many elderly people fight to stay in their own homes, even when it's difficult. It's not just about being comfortable. It's about holding on to the ability to make choices, to struggle, to feel capable, to be the author of your own life until the very end. Because once you give that up, you stop feeling like a person and start feeling like a patient. One of the hardest things to explain about moving into a nursing home is not what changes around you, but what changes inside you. People assume the hardest part is the physical adjustment, getting used to new surroundings, new routines, new rules. But the real challenge, the one no one talks about enough, is the emotional weight of it all. Loneliness takes on a new meaning when you live in a place full of people but still feel completely alone. In the beginning, I told myself I would adapt. I would make friends, stay busy, find joy in this new chapter. But what they don't tell you is that in a nursing home, friendships come with an unspoken truth. They don't last. People leave. Some get transferred to other facilities. Some become too ill to talk. And some just don't wake up one morning. I've lost more friends in a single year here than I did in an entire lifetime before this. And each time, it never gets easier. There's an emptiness that follows you, a quiet grief that settles into your bones. No one talks about it. No one warns you that the hardest part of growing old isn't the wrinkles or the aches. It's watching the people around you disappear, one by one, until you're the only one left remembering. I think of something Gabriel Garcia Marquez once wrote. It is not true that people stop pursuing dreams because they grow old. They grow old because they stop pursuing dreams. But what happens when the world makes it impossible to dream anymore? In a place like this, the future feels small. You stop making plans because, really, what is there to plan for? Every day feels the same. You wake up, eat at the same time, see the same faces, follow the same routine. Life becomes predictable in a way that is both comforting and suffocating. I used to feel needed. I was a parent, a grandparent, a friend, a neighbor. I had a purpose. But here, it feels like you become just another resident, another name on a chart, another body in a wheelchair, another person whose stories, dreams, and memories start to feel like they no longer matter. Visitors come and go, but as time passes, they come less often. Everyone is busy. They assume you're being taken care of, that you're fine, that you have everything you need. But they don't see what's missing. They don't see how much you long for a conversation that isn't just about your medications or the weather. They don't see how much you miss being hugged, touched, held, not just by nurses, but by people who truly love you. There's a strange feeling that comes with realizing you've become someone people visit instead of someone they make time for. And the worst part? You start to accept it. At first, I would get excited when the phone rang, when a familiar face walked through the door. But over time, the calls became less frequent, the visits shorter. And after a while, I stopped expecting them at all. That's what loneliness does. It teaches you to expect less, to need less, to shrink into yourself until you barely recognize the person you used to be. But I refuse to disappear quietly. If there's one thing I've learned through all of this, it's that life, even in its smallest moments, even in the quietest places, still has meaning. So I try. Every day I try. I try to find joy in a kind word, in the sound of laughter from a staff member passing by. I try to hold on to my memories like treasures, reminding myself that even if the world forgets them, I still live them. I try to keep my mind sharp, to read, to think, to remember that I am more than just a person waiting for time to pass. And most of all, I try to remind myself, and anyone who will listen, that just because you grow older, just because the world changes around you, it does not mean you stop mattering. Because we do. We all do. If I could go back, would I make a different choice? Maybe. Maybe I would have fought harder to stay in my own home, to hold on to my independence for just a little while longer. But the past is the past, and all we can do is move forward. So, if you are considering this choice, think carefully. Not just about convenience, not just about safety, but about what truly makes life worth living. Because life is not just about surviving, it's about living. And I hope, wherever you are, you're living fully, freely, and without regret.